night on Monday Night Football, the Lions beat the Raiders 26-14 to improve to 6-2. Are the Lions a part of the NFC Elite now? Well, when you look at that game last night, they did everything that you're supposed to do when you're a team that wants to ascend to that level of being an elite team in the NFL and specifically in your conference, the NFC. So when I really look at the situation at hand, you have a Lions team that really won because how good their defense played last night and the just stagnancy of the Raiders offense. It's just such a stagnant offense. Jared Goff had a good night last night, 26 to 37. He completed 70% of his passes, and he wound up there. He had a touchdown last night, and he threw for 272 yards, but he did have an interception. Jahmyr Gibbs had a breakout game last night of 152 yards on the ground, scoring a touchdown, and also he was able to get 37 yards as a receiver as well, 2 on 5 receptions. So he's arrived. Everybody had a whole lot to say. Why would you move up this early for a running back? Blase, blase, blase. But what they have to understand is in today's NFL, the running back isn't a big brute anymore. The running back is a very versatile player that can be a receiver, that can be a blocker, that can be a running back, and sometimes even a quarterback. These guys are they're going after the best athletes again to play the running back position. It's not about you going and putting that guy at wide receiver anymore. If you got a guy who's 5'10", 5'11", you usually now put him in the backfield more than anything because now you can use him in so many different ways. You don't have to just use the guy to be a running back. The guy can be a receiver as well too. And Jahmyr Gibbs really does fall into that category. Him and Bijan Robinson were two special players, and they could not pass these guys up. You couldn't let these guys drop to the third round. That's the whole thing. And Jahmyr Gibbs being picked in the first round the way he was, that was to ensure that you had Jahmyr Gibbs because Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be getting off the board within the first 15 picks. And the Lions did exactly what good teams do. And that's why they were slapping tables and people were having emotional moments because they found a key piece to getting their offense the way that they envisioned their offense. And that's exactly what showed up last night. But you still wanted more from this group. They weren't finishing drives. They were getting field goals last night. They got 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals. And sometimes when you have games like this, you'll say a team dominated a team, but in reality, they didn't. What they did was they were able to take advantage of opportunities, but this was a game they still could have lost. The Raiders made the game 14-16 at one point, 7-9 at one point. They really were playing the Lions pretty close, but they just made a lot of boneheaded mistakes like they always do. And Jimmy Garoppolo last night was very ineffective. He was under 50% on the completion percentage, 10 of 21. 126 yards. He threw an interception and he was sacked 6 times. Everybody's ready to go ahead and send him and McDaniels down the road, but I got bad news for you. They're not going anywhere. Devontae Adams is not getting traded. What else? Josh Jacobs isn't getting traded. So you guys have to understand these guys are stuck in Vegas. It is what it is. And at the same time, too, Vegas is not that bad of a situation compared to what they got going on in, say, Carolina or what you got going on in New York. It's just that everybody has these expectations for the Raiders that were really silly. The Raiders were never a Super Bowl contender this year. The Raiders were never a team that you could really say to yourself, oh, I think they could possibly get to the playoffs this year, because the thing is, they don't like the coach. And I've said this several times before. I've said this on Mike's show. I've said this on my show. I've said this on NFL Bet Exchange, that when you don't like your coach, you're not going to play as hard as you would for a coach that you really like, even though you're getting paid to be out here and everything like that. And you should be playing for each other. It's just that at some point you want the owner to realize that you haven't hired the right guy. We need to get the right guy in here. We don't respect this dude at all. Only person that respects him is you. So the more and more we look bad, the more and more it should reflect on him. But at the same time, too, you got to be better than that. you got to try to win these games. And I feel like the Raiders aren't trying anymore. Like they fell into 2 wins. That's what makes it really sad this year, because the Raiders were always a team that was committed to excellence, but really committed to the shield that's on their helmet. And they're just not anymore. It's like you used to be all about silver and black when you were a Raider. You didn't care about your coaches. You didn't care about the owner. You just go out there and look good. And, you're going to get a king's feast every time you step into a Raider-loved restaurant. So, it's just a really, really difficult situation for the Raiders right now. They're really all over the place. They didn't make any big deals happen here on the trade deadline. And you know what? It's another week where they have a game against a team that is struggling just as much as them, and they have an opportunity to put themselves in a better spot and, fix all this right now, because everything is fixable in the NFL, regardless if you believe it or not. But the Raiders are in a bad position right now, but they can be in a better position with some better decision making. So with that, we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump into our next. And also, real quick, to answer that question about are they a part of the NFC Elite now, I would say yes. I would say that they're the third best team in the NFC right now, without a doubt. And, after the last few weeks or so, seeing how San Francisco's played, they could say they're number 2 right now. But I think if you have San Francisco and Detroit go head up, San Francisco wins that game by 10 points or better, to be honest with you, either in Detroit or in Santa Clara. That's just how that matchup kind of works out, because the defense of the 49ers has always been a thorn in the side of Jared Goff. And one last thing before we move forward. I do have Jared Goff in my top 5 when it comes to the MVP race. And I think that he does need to get MVP consideration as well, too. Troy Aikman was right on the money about Jared Goff last night. But he's still not playing better than Jared Goff in 2018. I'm sorry. Jared Goff was absolutely tremendous. But let's go ahead and move forward. Let's talk about our next topic, which is the match